Hey guys, it's Rebecca, and I want to talk a little bit with you today while we're in the barn. It's a little warm out today, and when I go out to ride, I want to sort of get right to the point. So we're going to divide this up into 2 sessions, and one is just going to be me talking, and the other one will be demonstrating. So this is my 4-year-old. You guys haven't really met him except for a brief introduction. I haven't had him in any videos as far as any riding videos. So I started him like late summer, early fall last year as a 3.5-year-old. And then I threw him back out for the winter. And then I restarted him again this spring. Now, I usually buy my horses at like 6 months of age, which was the age that I bought him. And I do all of their training. So all of their groundwork, all of the introduction to everything as youngsters. And then I start them and then I train them as dressage horses. So it really gives me the ability to get to know their personalities and to understand how they learn and how to tailor my training to them. And this guy in particular, I would say he's a little behind where I'm usually at with this much time being put into their training. But that is because he is super special. So this horse is really talented, scarily talented. He's very athletic. He is super, super, super smart, but he's very sensitive. He has a little bit of, he has this twinge of him where I feel like if it ever presented, he would fight against you. And it is really important to me as a rider trainer that that doesn't ever come up. Because I really don't want him to learn to fight with me. I want him to learn to work with me. Now, with that being said, everything that I do, because basically they come to me halter trained and kind of leading, right, as a 6-month-old. So I have to teach them everything. And, from like tying to leading, like real leading, to be able to be cross-tied, to be able to be vacuumed, to be able to be clipped, to be able to be saddled, to be able to have rider weight on them and all of that. And I want my horses to be 100% okay with whatever step that I'm at. Now, of course, they're not going to be from the get-go, but if you break it down in these small, tiny little increments, the little bit that you're taking them out of their comfort zone is okay. It's not a big deal. You're not arising any fight or flight response from them. And that is super important in 2 types of horses that are easily fearful or horses that have a tendency to want to fight or flight, right? So that, you don't want to arise that out of them. You want to keep the threshold of their training below, especially in the beginning, because what you're trying to do is develop a relationship with them and you're trying to get them to enjoy. I've talked about this in so many of my videos about it's hard work to do any sort of dressage or any sort of riding, both for the rider and the horse. And I want to make that as enjoyable as possible. So from the very get-go, I am building that into my system. So I use, in the beginning, a lot of reward-based training. And I know that that has gotten a little bit of a bad rap over the past years because people do it really poorly. They become Pez dispensers. They just do not know how to incorporate it into their training. Because I have not had that experience. It has been a huge tool in my tool belt, but I use it in a very specific way. And I use it to build motivation. I use it to get them to, they very quickly understand stuff when you use reward-based training, when you use operant conditioning. They very quickly get on board with it. They enjoy working with you. And in those beginning things that can be really sort of stressful and uncertain for a horse, it is imperative. And I use it a lot. I will phase out of it as soon as the horse is comfortable with that, and we're going on to the next step. And that is what has taken me so long with him, is to feel that he's completely confident in the step before until I take the next step. And that is why his training has been a little bit slower. It is paying off in spades now. So now he's starting to get more confident. Now he's starting to understand. Now he's starting to want to work with me. He's getting very consistent. That's what I will say, is he's getting very consistent in what I'm asking of him at this point in his life. And that is super important, because I am building right now the building blocks, the framework, the launching point for everything else in his career. And this has to be done really well here, right now. And I feel that a lot of horses don't get that great of a start. They kind of get put into a program where there's maybe, one or two variations, but otherwise they just have to fit in that program. And a lot of them sort of get very confused, frustrated, scared, and it shows up later in their training, and it shows up as holes. Now, the one place where I have a tendency to really not be good is I have my own little place here, and I don't get my horses off the farm as much as I should. And so I really need to do more of that, because what happens is your expectations when you go into a new environment have to be lowered, because you're having to deal with the stress levels of the horse in the new environment. And you have to teach them how to handle that appropriately. And that is a whole nother skill set that they have to learn. So they have to learn the skill at home, and then they have to learn it on the road. And it's important to understand, sorry, I'm getting a little bit of a hoarse voice, no pun intended. It's really important to understand that when you're training something, you are training that one particular thing. Later, you build duration or speed or quickness or something like that, but that doesn't happen until they have the skill down. And the same thing is when you're going to take them into a new environment, that skill set that they learned in their own environment is not going to be as good as it is when you take them into a new environment, because there's so many, as a prey animal, they're scanning that environment to know if it's safe. And so you have to teach them how to handle those emotions and how to find safety in the exercises that you do with them. That just doesn't happen overnight. You have to get them out and you have to do it. And a lot of times my time schedule and everything, I don't get to do that. The other thing is that it's only me in the arena. There's no other horses. So that's another thing, that a lot of times if you're at a boarding establishment, you don't have those problems, because there's always people around. There's always other things going on. And so it can be a little bit too quiet and too nice here, which is great. But at the same time, if you want to compete or trailer or go places, you have to do that, and you have to teach them how to handle that. So anyhow, that's kind of a long-winded introduction to where Romeo is. So Romeo is basically walk trot. I've done a little bit of canter under saddle, and that's why I say he's kind of behind. At this point, I would be cantering under saddle with most any other horse that I've started. But whatever, he's needed the confidence to be able to go out there by himself, out in the arena, no other horses, and and feel comfortable carrying my weight around. And we've gotten to walk trot, and he's gotten much more consistent. So as far as just, he hasn't, knock on wood, he hasn't ever done anything bad. But I just feel like he's a little insecure about the balance. I feel like he's a little bit insecure about, wanting to come back to the barn, and things like that, I've wanted to just take this time and not put any pressure on him, set us up for success. That has been my whole goal in all my horses, is to set us up for success. So I think that's about it. You'll see in the video that when he starts out, I don't put him on the bit. When I start horses, I want them to learn how to go regardless of what discipline they do. I do not start them in side reins on the lunge line. I do not do that. That is my holistic practitioner training in there. That the bones of the neck, I don't want that. I don't want it set. They have time to learn that without being cranked down in some side reins. If I ever feel the need that they need to have some sort of guidance in that direction, there's other ways to go about it, and we can discuss that in a future video. So I basically teach them all the groundwork. I teach them lunging. I have someone lunge me on the horse when it gets to that point, when I've done all of the prep work as far as laying over their back and saddling them, and all of that. And I can do videos of some of that for you guys in retrospect now about how I go about that, because that starts at a very young age, meaning I might be throwing a saddle blanket, like a, oh my gosh, I'm losing my brain here. Let's just call it a towel. I'm going to throw a towel maybe over their back as a 1-year-old, right? So they're just like, oh, okay, well, no big deal, right? I'm going to be able to, just be able to touch them with a towel, at a very young age. And then I might just say, hey, guess what? That sits across your back, no big deal, right? So saddle blanket, that's what I was looking for. So things like that, I start very young. I start things like, hey, can you just hang out in your stall with a bridle on? Can you hang out in the stall, with a saddle on? Like that, I start very early, but I don't actually ever sit on them until they're 3.5. And then I do a very quick sort of like 30 to 90 days max, and then they go back out. But I do all of that work to make sure that the first rides are successful. And then the first rides are usually in a small little stone dust paddock where I'm just sitting on them, maybe walking around, teaching them how to turn from the saddle. I've already taught that from the ground. And then I take them out to the arena and work on stuff out there. I've already been out there a gazillion times working on groundwork and stuff like that. And then I'll have my my significant other, lunge me and stuff like that. And then we come off the lunge line and we have to be solid, like walk trot. First solid walk, then solid walk trot, before I feel really confident about taking them around and about, and then walk trot canter. So we're kind of at that spot right there, and you'll see. So I don't force them on the bit. I present the bit to them and give them the time to learn how to go to the bit. That's basically how it happens. And that's what you'll see in the first riding video of him, because he'll start out, leaning in or not turning great, or, not really trucking along, inconsistent in the tempo. And then by the end of the ride, where he's at right now, by the end of the ride, he's starting to like, okay, and I'm going toward the bit, but not because I'm making him do that. And we can discuss that in the video. So anyhow, I just wanted to give you an introduction. So this is Don Romeo, RFS is his name. He is a registered Oldenburg. I imported him as a 6-month-old from Germany. He is let me see if I can remember his breeding. He's a Don Romance. That's the sire. The dam sire is Dream Boy, and his grandsire is Dante He is about 16 to 16.3. I think he'll probably level out about 16.3. He might be 16.3 now. I do have a stick I can put on him, but he'll probably come out about 16.3, 17 hands. I don't think he'll get as big as my other guys. He's already filling out sooner than my other guys have. My other guys that got much taller, you know, stayed leaner and not as wide. He is, you'll see in the videos, he's a pretty beefy guy. He's got a really nice bum on him. Yeah, and you're so cute. He is super, super, super friendly. This horse is very friendly. But I really wouldn't call him sweet. Like, I know I've talked about my horse Jovi as like the kindest horse ever. This guy's got a little bit more panache to him. He's got a little bit more fire to him. He's more sensitive. He's, yeah, he's just kind of, he's very unique. I don't think that he's going to be the easiest horse to train. He is definitely a professional's horse. He is not an amateur horse at all. Where Jovi could go to an amateur tomorrow and I'd be perfectly confident that he'd be fine and that the amateur would be fine. This guy, no. I even think that as he goes up through the levels, he's always going to be a pro's horse. Luckily, he's a super good mover. So if I ever decide that, you know, he's not for me, that somebody would die to have this horse. He's like super cool. So that is Romeo. We call him Romeo or Romes for short. Yeah, and he's special. Yes. All right, thanks guys. I'll see you in the riding video.